Today we're going to look at what I've come to refer to as our three main centres of connection in our body. So what am I talking about? What we're trying to get to with these three main centres is a way of moving our body through its greatest potential range of movement while still transmitting maximum power and being able to adapt very quickly to changes in demands from our external environment. So let's just have a look at that. So what are these three main centres? Okay, so first, number one, we're looking at our feet. So collectively they form our first main centre. And then we're looking at our pelvis. And thirdly, we're looking at the upper chest and between the shoulder blade region. When we're referring to our second centre, which is our pelvis, we're often looking from the point of view of what our tailbone is doing. By extension, our third main centre, and I call it a centre because by extension we have our arms that extend out from that centre and we have our neck and our head. So in terms of expression of that third main centre, we're looking at projected arm movements and neck movements. So let's step back here and just see how these three main centres all work cooperatively together and cover all those areas that I spoke of: the range of movement, the power delivery, and adaptability to different demands from our surrounding environment. So first of all, we'll just go through some basic movements using these three main centres. So first of all, let's look at movement forwards and backwards with our body. So let's imagine that we've got an imaginary kitchen drawer and we're going to use our pelvic centre here to try and push that imaginary kitchen drawer backwards. So using our tailbone here to push that drawer back. Now that's about as far as I can get if I just think of using my pelvic centre. But by introducing my first centre, which is my feet, if I, without too much force, just lean out into my feet as if I'm gently pushing the floor apart with my feet, look at the leverage that I gain from my tailbone when I do that. So, and also I feel that's really quite powerful now, as opposed to just using my hips alone. That's quite, I feel quite wishy-washy and weak, but as soon as I engage with the floor, parting the floor with my feet, there's quite a lot of power delivery through there as well. So that's through just using two centres. Let's add the third one, and let's just think of the third one as being our upper chest region for now. And let's see what happens when I press my upper chest forward as if I'm trying to close the kitchen cupboard door with my chest, and look what happens to my tail when I do that. So an increase of movement backwards with my tail. So working collectively, I've increased my range of movement and I've increased the amount of drive and power that is available to me through my body. So if I want to punch something forward with my upper chest, if I use my other two main centres, bang, bang, bang. And we've covered this from a slightly different approach with the video, standing, kneeling and sitting on the wonder chair, where we were propelling imaginary soccer balls with our upper chest. So same principle. Let's take a look at how we can use these three main centres in leaning back now. So first of all, let's just drop our pelvis forwards, and really that's about as far as I can go till I sort of hit a bit of a wall. I can't really get my hips any further. So let's recruit our feet. Again, we're going to part the floor with our feet. So I've got a nice bit of leverage, and out goes that pelvis quite comfortably, quite easily. So by using our three main centers, it doesn't increase any more strain on the body. In fact, it's quite relaxing to lean into the floor like that. It takes a lot of loading off the body to move in cooperation with that support from the floor than it does to not be working so cooperatively and connectedly to the floor. So lovely connection I'm feeling through my feet, and I'm really grounding myself by parting the floor with my feet, and out levers that pelvis. Now this makes it very easy for my upper body to, let's just pull that back. So with my pelvis in this position, I can get my upper body that far back, but look what happens when I propel my pelvis even further forwards. How much my upper body can easily lever back with very, very little effort. So let's, at this stage, introduce some breathing to this movement. So if we think of our in-breath as being our expansion breath, we can breathe in, part the floor with our feet, and expand our hips forwards and lever our upper body back, and it looks like this. And then on the out-breath, which coincides with the body just letting go and dropping, look what happens. So the hips drop further forwards and the upper body just drops further back with that release of tension. So let's take that through another breath cycle, which we won't get quite as much movement, but you know it will still be there. So breathing in and levering back, and then on the out breath. So you can keep going like this. And to come back up, just bending the knees, otherwise you're going to strain your lower back. If you keep working back intensely enough into that position, you're going to want to bend those knees to come back up. So let's see if that same principle is going to work in our side-to-side plane of movement. So first of all, if I try to do a regular side bend, let's see how far I get. So to about here, and any further than that, I'm hitting the wall. So let's try and kick this hip out more by pushing into the opposite foot, and this is what happens. Easily, easily. Let's try and open up this side of my body by pressing into this foot and trying to push the ceiling away with this hand and see what happens. So I easily go over further. Let's assume I've done that on my expanding in-breath, and now I just want to relax, let gravity take over for me. And let's take that through another breath cycle. So breathing in, I'm going to push into this foot to lever that out, hip out. And still on the in-breath, pushing into that foot, pushing the ceiling up, and on my out-breath, relaxing over. Again, bending the knees to come up. So we can do that to both sides. Let's see how, if those three main centers are going to work in a rotational plane of movement. So it's going to be a little bit different rotating in terms of the role of the pelvis, but let's see what's achievable. So let's first of all start with a regular rotation. So just using, muscles in my upper body, I can get to about there comfortably, and then I'm hitting my wall. I can't really go any further without really locking up. I'm using quite a lot of stressful effort. So let's employ this foot here that I'm turning away from and see what that first center of connection through to my upper body can provide. So pushing off from this foot. A very significant increase in movement. Now let's try pushing into this foot. And a less significant, but still significant improvement. Let's imagine there's a button behind this opposite shoulder here that I'm pressing back into with my shoulder. And let's try and rotate even more. Let's try pushing this hip back against the wall behind me. And then rotating even more. So the body is connected in all these ways that if they coordinate together, if you know what parts will help you lever other parts into a greater range of movement, that's exactly what you get. So in terms of movement, if we are trying to achieve movement and power through our bodies just by isolating separate muscles, you can see through that demonstration the limitations with that approach and the far greater range of movement and ease of movement and power that is gained through having a connected body, not just a connected body, but a body that's firmly rooted and connected into the support coming from anything within our surroundings. In this case it was through my feet into the floor, but this can be demonstrated in terms of anything that you can latch onto and gain leverage from. It's those levering forces that open the body, that make a body far more efficient with less muscular effort, and levering creates freedom within the body too. Because without levering, the body is behaving in a state of isolation, which our bodies register as potential threat. It's like anything you put into isolation is receiving no support, no connection, and it will start to behave as if it has to look to itself for its own resources. Anything in the outside surroundings that haven't been identified as a support are a potential threat. So it will contract and try to defend itself. So to open our body, we have to be outward focused in terms of where is my support, what can I connect to, and how can I maximize connection in my body so that parts of my body don't get isolated into that lockdown of contractive state. We cannot separate our minds and our emotions and our bodies from each other. If we operate in our lives feeling physically unsupported, the same thing carries through for our emotions and literally our whole mental perception of our situation, which we continue as a theme throughout all our videos. Now, at the start of the video, we mentioned the fact of how the neck and the arms were extensions for this upper center. Now, we can have blockages in any one of our three main centers. If any one of those are blocked, it's going to adversely affect the capabilities in the other parts of our body. So the more we can do to free up each of those centers, the more the flow through positive effect of that. So let's just see the effects of trying to make the upper chest center work a little bit better for not just opening this center, but also the flow through effect for our whole bodies by using our arms and our neck. So why don't we try that with our forward bend. So tail comes out, feet part, chest goes forward. Okay, now let's just bring the arms in and see what effect that has. So I've got all that working, and now I'm going to reach out with my arms as well. So increase. Let's see if that works for my neck. So I'm still here, and I'm going to reach forward with my arms and my neck. So a little bit of an increase, but quite a big increase by using my arms. And the same goes for side stretches, where the reason I use my arm was because I can propel more of a side stretch by using my arm, which is an extension of this upper chest center here. We've referred also in previous videos how the neck is very influential on this upper chest center, in terms of what a forward head position can do to shut that down, and how a nicely relaxed, decompressed neck that is nicely relaxed as if there's a supportive cushion behind the neck, what that can do for opening up this chest center. And we've worked into neck rotations to help free that neck up. We'll look a little bit more now at how we can make our body more adaptable to varying demands coming from our surroundings, and also increase power delivery through our body. So let's look at what happens if we can imagine we're in a sports game and there are balls coming at us from different directions that we have to catch or throw. Let's see how we might cope with a situation like that if we're just staying passive and not connected through our three main centers. So let's just look, generally speaking, at the range of movement and the adaptability of my body to meet those demands. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work into my first center of connection by pushing the floor apart, which is going to help lever those hips around. And I'm going to use my upper chest to move as well. And you just decide for yourself how much gained adaptability my body has. If I'm really working into those feet to lever that pelvic movement, and using my chest to also help propel or leverage down through my hips and down into my feet. And coming back to being passive and seeing and asking yourself, who would be winning the game if you had a team of people working disconnectedly in this way, compared to connecting and increased range of movement and an easy adaptability. Great. So let's just look at power delivery through the body when we use our three main centers. So if we consider if these weights were something I wanted to deliver to a person across from me. So if I stay passive and I'm holding this load here and I'm trying to deliver it to someone, I get to about here and already my chest starts to get quite strained. My breathing is affected and I'm feeling tension down the back of my neck and across my shoulders. Okay, and that's getting quite difficult. Now what happens if I part the floor, use my pelvis a little bit more, and open my upper chest? Okay, and all that strain is coming out of my neck now. My breathing is completely opened up, and I'm feeling really quite nice. Great. Now let's not just stay in that plane of movement, let's just see how adaptable I can be. So what if my friend was over here? If I lever, quite good, and I'm not getting strained in any one part of my body. Let's say if my friend was overhead, behind me. Very, very little strain. Very good, even dispersion of loading through my body, right down to my feet, and out to the side, this way, even bending the knees. If I'm still using my feet, I can deliver that load quite adaptively. Now what happens when I switch off my feet and I try to do that passively? I go from here with ease to switching everything off to here, and already my deltoid muscles are starting to strain and I'm getting that familiar tension up through the back of my head, my neck. and strain down this side of my leg. So let's plant the floor again and use my hips. Lovely. And I have lovely even load distribution. Fantastic, great. So we've looked at range of movement increase, adaptability and delivery of power. So in talking about our three main centres, we really need to come back to what is this thing that makes these three centres work? What is it? It's actually not the three main centres themselves, it's the relationship between them. And the question arises, well, how are these three main centres then relating to each other? They're relating in a levering fashion, and we know that leverage involves forces working against each other. Oppositional forces create not just movement, they create the whole manifest world around ourselves that we see and feel and touch and taste around ourselves. So oppositional forces coming together, letting ourselves drop into them, is what we call rest, and expressing oppositionally outwards is what we call propulsive movement and delivery of power. But if we're doing it oppositionally in that way, the beautiful hallmark of moving oppositionally in that way is that it's so easy. It still has that stamp of an oppositional movement, which is still coming from that zone of perfect connection and rest. You can see a great demonstration on the Wonder Chair video on standing, kneeling and sitting on the Wonder Chair, where we were pushing soccer balls out with our chest, and how easy that is. Not only easy, but quite enlivening it is, because all the time that we're moving oppositionally, we're shedding pockets of tension, which are heavy to carry. They have tremendous energetic investment involved with them. We can just flush them out with beautiful connected oppositional movement, which works very well within the human design of the body, because we have these three independently moving main centres that we can utilise in that oppositional way. There are parts of our body all over the place that we can individually move oppositionally, which come into play in all our videos, but this was just to look at the main ones. Which feeds into another principle that we've mentioned from time to time in these videos, that oppositional movement creates opening in our body, it creates alignment, it leads into movement that is usually wave-like, but also oppositional movement, because of all these effects that it produces of opening and producing rhythmic movement, which is fundamentally to the human makeup, is a very soothing and a very sort of physically rallying form of movement, where everything pulls together as one with ease. Because of these effects that oppositional movement create, leverage, opening, wave-like movement, oppositional movement creates pleasure within the body, and in turn pleasure becomes our stamp of confirmation that the connection is being made, we're discovering the right oppositional levering connections. It's the pleasure that is the stamp of confirmation that everything is working as it should. And this is why it's so important to move with that sense of wanting to move for pleasure, which is how it all began from birth, and it's something that we tend to overlook. As we adopt more this kind of programmed, this heavily sort of technically programmed view of the body, that everything has to be controlled through our intellect and mastered, our body needs to be mastered through our intellect. So please think of trying to work from your three main centres, because I think you'll be surprised how your movement benefits without this world improvement. And also being open to the accompanying pleasure, which Often we don't associate with good exercise because we have, this modern mantra of no pain, no gain, and you're not serious unless you strain and you feel pain. And these are the hallmarks of serious exercise, when nothing, in my experience, could be further from the truth. And I hope through experiment you'll find a similar correlation behind really powerful, connected, adaptable, and increased range of type movement with pleasure, with pleasure, with pleasure, with pleasure, with pleasure.